until your second zone. This is where it kind of fell apart. Notably, your first zone was properly paced and gave reasonable XP. After that though, oh boy, there was never enough quests to reach the appropriate levels for the next zone. Yeah, it was one of those kinds of grinds. Compare that to today where you can do a quarter of the quests and out-level your zone. The zones were so random in their questing, it was infuriating. Allow me to share with you two of the most noticeable areas that questing was hell. Firstly, Arathi Highlands. The quest banding in this zone was around 8 levels. There was enough quest XP for 2, maybe 3 at best. You would enter the zone around level 30, pick up 6 or 7 quests, and then be unable to get any more till 33. Even though the quest that you got gave you half a level at best. The idea was to send you to the other zones and explore them. However, even though you would do all that, you would still be taunted endlessly by that goddamn silver quest giver. The sweet, sweet moment when you dinged, yes, I got 32. Surely now that damn NPC will give me the quest. The only solution was to grind it out on mobs. A lot. But more to Arathi specifically, and the damn Stromgarde quests. To put this in context, you could only get a mount, the slow one, at level 40, so you were moving on foot for a long time. Bear in mind that the average leveling time to 60 was a couple of months with regular play. Getting from Hammerfall to Stromgarde on foot was around 10 minutes running each way, not including the goddamn dinosaurs and spiders aggroing your ass every step of the way. 4 times you had to do this run to finish the quest. And realistically, you couldn't even skip them as they gave so much XP. Stranglethorn Vale was the next most frustrating. One zone that covered 10 freaking levels of questing. The always hilarious Nessunwary Safari quest bringing in the early 30s, then jumping a whole bunch to level 35 in the mid-towns, all the way to 40 plus near Booty Bay. There were even level 42 and a random level 50 quest to be had here, but nowhere near that much XP rewarded. It was not uncommon to spend hours whacking away at red quest mobs one at a time for that ever so precious experience. It was clear that the early game wasn't complete. End zones were in fact incomplete. Winterspring was the most finished, but even that was horrifically designed around a single quest hub which had travel quests spanning the entire game world. Silithus, in fact, just empty, to later be redone in a patch. The saving grace was the world. It was amazing and gripped you by the nuts and never let go, which is lucky because if there were more finished games equally looking this good, I can't imagine anybody sticking it out to the end. As you can imagine though, alts were around, but the rarity in comparison to today. Let's discuss questing itself. On the good side, the questing actually wasn't too bad, especially the larger scale quest lines, which realistically had only one flaw. They were really hard to find. It's kind of like a retarded treasure hunt, where you want people to find your treasure, but still make it Indiana Jones hard to do. Arathi Highlands is another example of this. The Princess Trapped. It's an epic questline involving the ultimate release of a seemingly innocent princess named Misriel, and a lovely finale of kicking her ass back to the depths as she's actually a total bitch. Many people never even found this, or completed it, as the level 30 quest had, well, let's just say it, it was a level 37 boss at the end of it. Kind of unfair, but it was a nice idea. The main problem with questing wouldn't be changed until the Burning Crusade. They were all over the damn place. Random NPC dudes dotted around the zones with one quest and no way of knowing they were there unless you got told. It was clear Blizzard was proud of their world and wanted you to see it all. So very often you would get a quest to go and visit some other zone about 40 minutes away just to be told thanks. I needed that note, and no further quests or fucks were given by your presence. I believe this is a good point to relive the idea of class quests, especially after the recent Warlock questline. Lots of people know that hunters and priests had their own class quests starting from Molten Core, but they were not the only ones. My favourites were the warrior class quests. They were the shit. Warriors got class quests every 10 levels, either rewarding some armor or a new spell. They were stupidly hard and had a buttload of travelling. My absolute favourite was the quest to get your Berserker stance. That's right, it It wasn't just on the trainer. The Berserker quest made me actually travel to the Barrens, which again promotes not only the idea of exploring, but the opposite faction also had an entire world to themselves that you could go and see. Off the coast was Frey Island, only accessible by swimming along the coast. It truly felt as though you were a powerful warrior on your way to prove your worth. It's just a pirate island now, after it was declared obsolete, which is a great sadness to me, as it gave my class so much more flavour than just another melee. Blizzard had no idea that they had just created the best game ever made, and if you thought Diablo 3 or SimCity or hell, even an instance cannot be launched right now was a problem, oh boy, did you miss out on some crazy shit. Blizz expected the game to peak around 400,000 players in the first year. That happened in 4 weeks, and the servers went into complete meltdown. They had to periodically stop selling the game so it would even stay alive, but for those of us already inside, we had some interesting moments. One memorable moment that stands out for me was being stuck on a griffin for 25 minutes. Stuck in place, unable to move, with an ever-increasing amount of people lining up next to me. No matter what you did, your character would just sit floating there. Trapped in instances, quest NPCs not talking to you for tens of minutes at a time. It was a regular occurrence for at least 12 months. Not the weeks we expect now. Incredibly motivated and ambitious, but understaffed and underprepared. It didn't stop Blizz from pushing through all those nightmares to continue with what was clearly becoming something infinitely larger than they could have ever dreamed. This led to the greatest and most disastrous event in Blizzard's WoW history. But remember, Blizzard had swag now. They could hire more people.
With an understaffed development team, and I remember some of the first people to join Team 2 were Team 2.
He brought in to be the senior producer on...
Ambition could be a dangerous thing, especially when you know the end result could be spectacular and be memorable. The return of the old god Cthulhu and the opening of Ahn'Qiraj. As mentioned, Silithus was a wasteland of epic proportions. Blizzard also noticed that a vast number of the population was unable to join the raiding experience, and as such needed other content to satisfy them. Yep, this was it. The first time the daily quest and the 5-man repeatable content ever really sort of turned its head. Later joined by the item quest for the aptly named Tier 0.5, but that's another story. Silithus needed updating. We needed a new raid. Players were burning through Blackwing Lair and hungry for more. Zul'Gurub had been a huge highlight with 20-man content, allowing new players a route into raiding, and the current raiders to do more interesting content outside of the main raid flow. So the Unstoppable devs began to set the foundations of what would be an exciting and invigorating patch. The premise was simple. Everyone in the game can contribute in some fashion. Just farm some basic minerals, some herbs, some cloths, and give them to the war effort NPCs, fueling the fire to open the doors of the Karaji temple. Another interesting twist to how vanilla works, compared to now, is that the raid content was implemented well into the game, long before anyone could actually enter it. I remember the day well. The message that the war effort was complete. I was a lowly MC raider on the Alakir realm. By today's standards, it was a utopia of a realm with a wealth of highly progressed PvE guilds and also renowned for its high-end PvP players. You might remember classic vanilla videos from players such as Zalgradis of the Alliance and Grim of the Horde, both Alakir players. I was in good company, and we were going to be amongst the first to witness the opening event in the entire world. The time arrived. Those powerful enough to have completed the quest stood ready at the gong. Oh well, so I'm told. The event was a total disaster for populated realms. Getting to Silithus was a giant pain in the ass in the first place. Flights from Stormwind to Menethil Harbour, wait for the boat, go to Theramore, fly down to Tanaris, and then mount your ass up and ride through Ungoro. If you hadn't managed to get the new flight points, that is. Needless to say, I made it as far as Theramore before all of Kalimdor bugged out, and threw players back to Menethil Harbour repeatedly. There were hundreds of people on the boat. It seemed that Silithus had been the only relatively stable area of the entire continent. with players already inside able to sort of stay connected, but even they were lagging so bad it was impossible to make out what the fuck was going on. The gates opened, random monsters appearing, disappearing, lagging, shooting across the world. What made it worse was that the brave defenders of the realm, those few hundred who had cleared the Blackwing Lair and protect us from these behemoths, had no interest in the event itself and barrel rolled their way past everything into the raid instance, leaving the noobs, including me after the initial rush settled down, to face these raid bosses on our own. It wasn't pretty. In fact, it was a diabolical mess that pretty much ruined the idea of server-wide events ever happening again. Maybe in Titan. Maybe. I was able to see the whole event properly on a less populated realm later that year, and let me tell you, it fucking rocked. I want it again. It's a shame that moments like this really let it down. I mean, shit, this was vanilla. It was vanilla, for God's sake. Surely now we can handle this kind of stuff. But maybe not. We've seen players banned for bringing too many people to one zone. And we look at Undasta and we kind of worry about what could happen here. It's a crying shame. It really is. You know, I came into this video expecting to rag on vanilla and really kick it in the teeth, but it hasn't worked out that way, and I'm kind of happy about that. I was thinking about the recent MMOs. Look at Aeon and Conan. They had much worse problems than what World of Warcraft had, with much fewer players. At least WoW was able to stay alive, and Blizzard never really let it die, even in vanilla with the sudden zerg of players. Pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to doing the PvE and the PvP versions of this video, which should be coming out very shortly. But in the meantime, check out my other big videos. You can click them in the background now. I hope you enjoyed this.
Too soon. Let the games begin.
You are already dead.
The dark void awaits you.
PvE, the true meaning of Christmas. It's important to remember that essentially everyone during the course of Classic WoW was a terrible player. For real, really fucking bad. But that's okay, because the game's not hard. Before we can even start our journey towards killing a raid boss, we need to remember just how many of our specs were completely useless. You might think it's bad now because your class is 10k below some other classes for a couple of months. Oh boy, did you miss some good times. Content took precedence over trivial, silly things like making classes work. As long as you had a single working spec per class, you were fine. Want to play enhancement? Nope. Shadow? Nope. How about a balance or a feral? Well, fuck you. Let's have a look at exactly what you couldn't play. When I mean bad, I mean unimaginably bad, as in kick from the raid for turning up with such a spec. But hold the phone, you cat! You ain't ready to raid, you need to attune. Molten Core and Onyxia came with the game, but both needed attunements, and just for good measure, dem quests involved the most frustrating instance of all time, Blackrock Depths. BRD is bad enough. It could take many hours with a willing group, and usually your groups would be full of low-level players who the instance was actually designed for, and no matter how much you try, they just aggro everything in the dungeon just by walking in. You might think that the MC achievement was the easiest. Just gotta make it to the crystal and you're done. Wrong. True, you could get inside Molten Core, but GG if you wanted to see Raggy. I bet most of Team Transmog have no idea what these runes actually are, or that the rep you keep getting was actually important. After you got into MC, it was time for the Mega Grind Overdrive.
Live to win till you die, till the light dies in your eyes.
The aim is to get Aquil Quintessence. Good question. A vial of super dousing juice that had one charge and could only be gotten from an elemental in the middle of the goddamn ocean of Ashara. What were you thinking? So you've got your juice, you did your rune, and you are now officially the balls. Nope, because no doubt only 4 or 5 of you bothered to either A, do the fucking quest chain to unlock it, or even bothered to go and refresh it before the raid. So mid-raid, you would actually have to leave the raid, go back out to Ashara, and get another one. Exalted got you a vial that never expired, but that was a long-ass road to Exalted. Well, that sounds like a lot of work. I'll kill Onyxia instead, you think? She's one boss. Can't be that bad to get attuned. Oh, my brain. Some quests are meant to be done once. When you do it once, it's cool, epic, legendary even. Oni's quest was super interesting. Long story involving some long travelling across the entire map with long tasks, turn you into dragons and long searches for NPCs, travelling long roads across multiple zones, and the long journey. It was so fucking long, really long, but cool the first time. Alt friendly? Not so much. But now you're capped. And you're attuned. Let's raid. Now I just need 39 other gangsters. Has to be said, this was good and bad, and avoiding being rose-tinted about this isn't easy or fun, so I'm just not going to try. I'm going full fanboy. I was a total jerkface and hated anyone who wasn't a badass. As I moved up the all-important and crucial guild ranks to raid leader, I literally had members who wore pirate hats to raid. It was a time of organised madness, telling rogues not to use poison so they didn't screw the debuff limits on bosses. I hated so many people, regularly killing bosses with like 15 or 20 people left alive. This wasn't just in Molten Core either, this continued all the way to Nax. Bosses even back then were realistically designed around 25 people being decent, and the other people just come along and my god. I met the funnest people through this system. It was frustrating as hell for people desperate for progression, like me, but in strongest possible sense, I had so much straight out fun and laughed until my mouth hurt on many occasions. And let's not forget that the screams of 40 people is more satisfying than 25 or 10 any day.
He's immune.
Yeah,
He's not emerged. Now he's emerged. Oh, here comes the pain, bitch!
Pop, pop, pop.
But we're attuned now. Gear is pointless, so it's time to finally raid. My, where do we start? I'm actually going to skip talking about the bosses. At the time they were awesome, but looking back they had barely any mechanics besides Nixia deep breathing more. Almost any one of the current bosses had more mechanics than Molten Core combined, comparably. The stuff before Blackwing Lair was about LFR basic difficulty. It's worth mentioning the scale though, with 40 people in there, the raid size was enormous, concreting the epic feel of being in a raid. So you're in. All these people. What do I even cast? Talk about the wild west of playing WoW. Now we have videos, websites and spreadsheets about the most minor, teeny DPS increases imaginable. But fuck that. Back in these days, basically every class had one spell to cast. Sometimes two. Without listing variations, but I'm not bullshitting. I'll focus on the more idiotic aspects for the sake of time. Firstly, healers and downranking spells. The fuck is downranking? Good question. In vanilla, you gained ranks of spells as you leveled, like heal, heal rank 2, and so on. This was to keep your amount of spells small, but also give you that sense of increasing power as time went on. One problem with this is that the new ranks of spells, sure, they healed for more, but they also cost more mana. So by the time you capped your basic heal, Your go-to heal could only be cast a couple of times before ooming your sorry ass. To be a pro healer, you would need to go into your spellbook, find your rate spell, then choose the rank you learned at about level 20 and use that instead. Sounds fun, right? This is no
Of all these dreams I can't remember. No, I can't tell. I lost my mind in December. I hope you're well. But all I know is what I'm told. This feeling cannot be controlled. Watch the stars when I am gone. Have faith in me, we will behold. The skies are cast, they are foretold. Watch the stars when I am gone. After all that we've been through, I think it's fair from me to you. Watch it burn as we soar away. Hey, hey. After all is said and done, and I know I am the one. I have waited here forever. But all I know is what I'm told. This feeling cannot be controlled. Watch the stars when I am gone. Have faith in me, we will behold. The skies are cast, they are foretold. Watch the stars when I'm gone. But all I know is what I'm told. This After all that we've been through, I think it's fair from me to you. Watch it burn as we soar away. Hey, hey. After all is said and done, and I know I am the one, I have waited here forever. But all I know is what I'm told. This feeling cannot be controlled. But watch the stars when I am gone. Have faith in me, we will behold. The skies are cast, they are foretold. Watch the stars when I'm gone. When I am gone. You carry the world upon your shoulders. For I'm not the only one. How could you look behind now when everything is done? Oh, you carry the world upon your shoulders. For I'm not the only one. How could you look behind now when everything is done?
Yeah, we said we let it go, but we settled for the last. Couldn't let you want it though. Who am I to let you down? No, who am I to let you down? Down, down.
Charging. can't loot that. I can't cast that yet. I can't cast that yet. I can't cast that yet. Charging.
here with me now. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. 'Cause you're here with me now. It doesn't really matter. 'Cause I feel so free now. It doesn't really matter.
Dokar. For the Horde. What do you need? Be safe. Strength and honor. Go with honor. Loftar. Strength.
We only see what we want to now. I long that it could last. I've seen the wasteland of these empty words. This life is a battle.
blood and thunder.